stuff and who teaches web development from time to time, came up with a scale to measure the quality of a developer's work. He said it was kind of what he used subconsciously to judge his own work and the work of others. And he thought it was useful to his students as a way to gauge their homework, as well as kind of their career growth over time. So this is the scale. Does it work? Does it work well? Could it work better? Could it work elsewhere? So let's go one at a time. Does it work? And now, since we had so many cat pictures yesterday, we're going to have some dog pictures in this one. Does it work? Does it meet the functional requirements? Great. Tony tells his students, you'll probably pass. Outside of a classroom, you might not get fired. Sweet. So what do you think of someone who only does the bare minimum? We have higher standards than that for ourselves, don't we? Yes, we do. I can already tell. So, does it work? You'll pass. Does it work well? What do we mean by does it work well? Is the user experience acceptable? Behold the Norman door, named after the inspiration of Don Norman's classic book, The Design of Everyday Things, originally actually called The Psychology of Everyday Things. This thing is so awful that he just had to write a book about basically user-centered design in all things. The book was for like 87 or 88, so it's not obviously about the web, but don't do the web equivalent of this. There's no excuse for that crap, and you still see it everywhere. It's just no excuse. There's so many solutions. So if you do that, if you make it work well, if you come up with an acceptable user experience, you'll probably get a good grade. Outside the classroom, people may like you. The folks in sales and marketing, maybe even customers, will like you because you met their needs and you did it in a way that delighted them. Now, other developers on your team may still hate you. There's still work to do. We've made it work, and we made it work well. We are not done. Could it work better? Now, this may not be obvious what this means. What this really means is, can it be maintained? Code is read a lot more than it's written. You write this crap once, but you and others have to read it many, many more times if this is a living application. So a subset of this one is, can anyone else read it? Can anyone else read your code? Everyone else? Then you'll probably get a job. Outside the classroom, maybe you'll get a raise. But I'm not going to lie. This stuff is difficult. It could take you much longer to learn to write readable, maintainable code than it takes you to learn to make things that work and even work well. It's really, really tough. I've been doing this an embarrassingly long time, and it's still a serious challenge to take my code from working and working well to being readable by others. That makes it really tempting to get lazy and just ship your code once it works well. Learn to resist that temptation, and your coworkers and your future self will thank you. You're all at the beginning of your careers as coders still, but have you ever written code already and looked back at it a month later and had no idea what you were thinking when you wrote it? Can't make sense of what you did just a few weeks ago? Yeah. Remember, the developer you help may be you. Last point on the scale. Could it work elsewhere? In other words, could it be reused? Oftentimes, the same solution can fit multiple problems with only minor variations. The ability to write code in such a way that it can be used in multiple situations is indispensable. To one-up this even more, can it be packaged and shared? We often find ourselves using libraries that other people wrote. What if we wrote a library and shared it with the world? There are exceptions, but most folks who write libraries aren't doing it just for kicks. They needed to solve the underlying problem for themselves for some specific project. They just took the time to extract a general solution from their specific one. Even if you'll never actually be allowed to make it totally public because it's for a company or something, there are advantages to extracting out the code in this way, because ideally, you can read a certain chunk of code and it just describes the business problem or the solution to the business problem with nothing else in that particular piece. Nothing saying, put this crap here and that crap there. That should be somewhere else, right? So if you learn to do that, which again is pretty hard and takes a while, then it's not too far to get from there to something that you can actually package and share with others. So that's the scale. If you remember nothing else from it, remember this. Once you have things working, and even once you have things working well, make an effort to write readable, maintainable code and think about how it could be reused. Your peers and your future self will thank you.